Welcome, everyone. We're so glad that you joined us this afternoon for this event with Post Landfill Action Network. We're going to be learning about how to encourage zero waste here on campus at Bellevue College. As folks trickle in, I'll just talk a little bit about our fall sustainability series, which this event is a part of. I'm Sarah Holskeneck, Director of Sustainability here at the college. I use she, her pronouns, and maybe I'll have Alyssa, if you'd like to introduce yourself as well as we get started.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Alyssa Gordon. I'm the Associate Director of the Office of Sustainability. I use she, her pronouns.
Great. So we've got a lot of exciting events coming up this week, as you can see, and you can scan this QR code for a full schedule. I do encourage you to sign up if you're interested in any of these, especially tomorrow. We've got a great event. We have CSA produce boxes coming to campus, $20 for 10 different organic fruits and veggies. And this is just a really great deal, really good stuff. That'll be in the C courtyard. So yeah, please scan the QR code if you'd like to learn more, and you can also email us if you have questions at the email shown here. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen real quick, and we will get started. So there are just a few details that I wanted to go over. Everyone is muted as they're joining the session, so please do stay on mute unless you're prompted by our guest today or Alyssa or I. You're welcome to keep your camera on or not. We are recording this presentation so that it's available for folks who weren't able to join live. So if you would like, we'd love to have everyone who's willing introduce themselves in the chat as well. So if you'd like, please share your name, pronouns, and then if you'd like to share which program you're at here at Bellevue College, or maybe you're joining from outside the college, and that would be great to learn too. If you do have any technical difficulties during the session, please private message Alyssa or myself, and we'll be happy to assist. Lastly, I'd like to pause to acknowledge that Bellevue College resides on the traditional and occupied land of the Coast Salish peoples, past, present, and future. And that includes, but is not limited to, Snoqualmie, Suquamish, Duwamish, Nisqually, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot. We honor their connection to the region, pay respect to Coast Salish elders, past and present, and stand in solidarity through their struggles with continued systemic oppression. We commit to care for the land and water and center equity at the core of our unlearning. We also pause to acknowledge and recognize the labor upon which our country, state, and institution are built. We remember that our country is built on the labor of enslaved people who were kidnapped and brought to the U.S. from the African continent, and recognize the continued contribution of their survivors. We also acknowledge all immigrant labor, including voluntary, involuntary, trafficked, forced, and undocumented peoples who contributed to the building of the country and continue to serve within our labor force. We acknowledge all unpaid caregiving labor, and finally, we acknowledge that our institution relies on hourly, student, contingent, and unpaid labor, and we recognize those contributions. Now I'd like to take a moment to introduce our speaker for today's session, Ramiro Margua. Am I pronouncing that right? I'm sorry, I should have asked you before we started. Ramiro is a graduate of the University of South Carolina, where he studied environmental studies and marketing. At the university, Ramiro worked with the Office of Sustainability and led their on-campus permaculture farm. He took the teachings of permaculture and began applying them to other aspects of his life and how he interacted with the community and his organizing. As the director of events at Plan, he seeks to create spaces where we can all grow and learn from each other, and helps guide the new generation of change makers on college campuses and beyond. Welcome, Ramiro, and please correct my pronunciation of your name. I apologize.
No, don't apologize. You're totally fine. Hello, everybody. My name is Ramiro Murguia. And yeah, I work with Plan. I'm gonna start sharing my screen. Um, is that good, Sarah? I'm gonna get to start sharing my screen. Cool. And I'll share. Um, and can everybody see everything? All right, sweet. So today we're gonna be going over our presentation called "The Zero Waste Campus is Possible." This is a presentation that we do as a way to show and highlight the different aspects of zero waste and what we do. Like we mentioned, my name is Ramiro. I'm Plans Director of Events. I use he, him pronouns. I'm located on colonially known Philadelphia. It's on Lenape land. And like I said, it sounds like you all are doing a quick little roll call uh, in the chat. Keep that up. Love to hear your name, pronouns, what group you're with on campus. If you want to throw in a quick little extra questions, like what's the article of clothing you've held the longest? It's I don't know. I have a lot. I'm a notorious hoarder. Don't throw things away. It's both zero waste and also bad. I have things that I have owned since high school, and like they don't even fit anymore. I shouldn't own them anymore, but sentimental value. Am I right? So, kind of going over our agenda for today, we're going to go into Plan, introduce who Plan is for those of you who aren't aware, never heard of us, want to hear a little bit more. Then we'll go into defining the linear consumption economy, and just kind of focusing on what we mean when we're talking about that. Talking about our points of intervention theory, then talking about student power as a catalyst for change on college campuses and in the community beyond. And then talking about some solutions beyond the campus and the circular economy and uh, just in general. So, just kind of talking about Plan and who we are and where we began. This is a picture of our Students for Zero Waste conference in 2019. This was held at University of Pennsylvania here in Philadelphia. But Plan has been around since 2013. We actually started as a group. We were started by students. We started as a move out program on the University of New Hampshire's campus. And what made that kind of unique was that it was a move out program because I'm sure at this point we have all been on a college campus for a little bit. And if you're not, if you're a freshman, this is your first year, you will see very soon that at the end of the year or between transitions, there's a lot of waste that goes down. Like things get thrown away. Students are leaving. They're going back home, and things that they bought for their campus, their dorm, they no longer need. And there is so much waste. So many good things get thrown away just because. What are you going to do with it? Take it back home? Like you have everything that you had in your dorm already at home. So there's no need for you to take it home. So much waste gets thrown away at the end. We saw that problem and we're like, hey, well, what if we collected all of this because people are going to need to buy these items again at the beginning of the next year. And we collected them, we stored them over the summer. And then at the beginning of next year, we sold them back to students and save a bunch of things from going to the landfill, and two, save students a bunch of money because we're selling things that they're going to buy anyway and they're reusing, reducing, recycling, the whole thing. And what made this project in itself very unique was that it was the first like student led program of its time. And now it's very commonplace for campuses to host move out programs, but back then it wasn't. And with that, we just saw a lot of campuses. People started seeing that at the University of New Hampshire. It became kind of a project that became bigger and bigger. It became self-sustaining. We made enough money from the sale that we were able to kind of continue going on. And the campuses were like, hey, how do we do that? I want to learn more. And we were like, all right, cool. Like we started teaching other campuses how to do zero waste, how to do move out programs. And they're like, hey, what do you know about doing a compost program? Or what do you know about starting a thrift store? Or like, what do you know about other programs? And that kind of just expanded our reach beyond that. And we started from this like little campus we started from this little group on the University of New Hampshire. to now being a national organization, accidentally international here and there. We have campuses that we work with in Canada and everywhere else, just because they've reached out to us. But we've grown significantly from a group of a couple of students on the University of New Hampshire to being able to bring together. This is in 2019. This was, in a time that we were. This is our last big in-person conference. Where we got to bring together like over 500 students from all across the country to talk about zero waste and what the student-led zero waste movement looks like. So, what plan has become past move out programs. We have a lot of campus membership. So Bellevue is a member campus. And what that kind of works into is like project advising, where all of us on staff have like different expertise. And like mine is both in urban gardening, zero waste event planning, stuff like that. So if you're working on any of that, you can reach out to us individually and we can help you do that sort of support. We also host events. That's my side of things. So the Students for Zero Waste Conference, that thing that that picture that you all just saw, we host that every year, sometimes in person, sometimes digitally. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. We also host the Beyond Waste leadership incentives, these are regional events that we host across the country. And we also do customized workshops like this one, where we talk about different topics for people to get involved. We also do the Break Free from Plastic Pledge. We work with the Break Free from Plastic movement, which is like an international movement started by members of the Global South, predominantly a lot of in the Philippines, which was a group of individuals that got together and they're like, hey, plastic is an issue. We are dealing with a lot of like the global North's plastic in the global South, which is wild. Why are we dealing with your all's trash? And this is a pledge that we work with them with college campuses to get the presidents to sign to say that they will work on reducing all non-essential plastic waste on college campuses. Non-essential is really key because there are some things that you do need, but being mindful and being trying to get as intelligent as well as we can within that. And then we also do Atlas Zero Waste Advising. So this is like full-scale campus consulting where we are talking about zero waste from top to bottom. We're talking about procurement. We're talking about connecting different departments on campus to think about how we can envision a zero waste future together, and bringing everyone together to talk about that. And that's often we work with like a student that leads that on the campus, doing interviews across campus with different department heads, and really focusing on envisioning a zero waste campus together in a way that's doable and achievable, but also has buy-in from multiple sources on campus. So that's just a little bit of what we do. And why do we do that? Like, why do we focus on college campuses within our work? Well, it's because we feel like campuses are places that foster innovation and leadership from like young people. It's a space where a lot of students are going off for their first time. And it's your first opportunity to really build upon build your own like thought processes, your own initiatives, and start really cool projects. And it's like a testing, and it's a great place to test new ideas that can then be replicated beyond the campus. It's a really great place to start new systems, to think about reuse like systems. We've seen that a lot recently, where we're starting all of these like reusable containers and reusable things that are on campuses to then, okay, cool, how can we take this beyond this campus? How can we work with the community? How can we integrate this into a broader scope? And starting that on the little microcosms that are college campuses is a really great opportunity. And that's why we have chosen to focus on the college experience and working with college students. So also, I mean, every major global movement in the world that we have seen in modern history was started by youth. whether it be divestment, whether it be students against apartheid, whether it be students against war, whether it be like SNCC, like every major cultural shift that we have seen in this country was started by youth and was started by young people. So being there to help cultivate and help give students the tools and resources that they need to be the change makers on college campuses is something that we pride ourselves in, that we try to do as best as we can. I often say that plan focuses on giving students the tools and resources that we wish we had when we were students on college campuses organizing, making sure that students don't have to start from scratch. We're trying to give them a place to go beyond, and have a little springboard to be able to start projects and build them. So when we're talking about zero waste, I have a question for you all, because when I think it's a really great place to start. It's a really great little general, you know, collective knowledge of when you all think of zero waste, what does it mean to you? What is zero waste to you? And I'm gonna open up the chat so I can see it. So when you all think about zero waste, what comes to mind? What is zero waste for you all? Circular economy. Great. Yeah. So I mean, oftentimes it's, we're thinking about waste, we're thinking about making sure to we're avoiding trash, we're avoiding, these things. And then when we talk about zero waste in like the higher ed field of the world, oftentimes what college campuses view as zero waste, and what is often in the industry standard term, especially in just like the standardized space, is this idea of um, redesigning packaging to make it compostable or recyclable. Great. Yeah, these kinds of things. Well, when it comes to the 4 R's: reduce, reuse, refuse, recycle, yeah, incredible. But when we're talking about zero waste, especially when we're talking about zero waste with decision makers on a college campus, it is often talked about in a metric of diversion. Diversion being things, making sure that things don't go into a landfill. So, avoiding landfill, whether it be via compost, whether it be via recycling, whether it be via, those are typically the two main aspects. Diversion is, as a metric, is, you know, it's a math equation of like compost and mixed recycling over how much total waste is created on a college campus. And while this is a great like starting point, we often talk about diversion as a flawed metric, mainly for, if not just the aspect of when we're talking about diversion in the zero waste hierarchy, diversion focuses only on the recycling and compost. And it's a flawed metric because oftentimes diversion is negatively impacted by reducing waste just because of the math equation that it is. When you're thinking about a division problem, numerator, denominator, when the denominator gets smaller, the overall number gets smaller. So if a campus is producing less waste overall, their diversion metric then goes down. And like that doesn't signify zero waste, because like you should be like rewarded for reducing your overall waste profile, but oftentimes in a standard diversion metric you are penalized for it. So when plan talks about zero waste, we talk about waste through a lens of aversion, or again reducing that waste holistically. So what someone mentioned, the 4 R's of reduce, reuse, refuse, recycle. So here we're thinking about, rethinking and redesigning. Someone mentioned rethinking, redesigning packaging so that it is compostable and recyclable. Reducing the amount of product that we are overall consuming. What can we do? Well, oftentimes what we do when we do an atlas assessment is we bring all of these different department heads together, and we're like, hey, you are all buying like 1 million plastic cups and you're not using them all every year. What if only one of you all bought like 1 million cups, and then we divided them amongst us and we reduce how much we're purchasing? And then reusing, thinking about, okay, if we're going to buy something, what if we buy something that we can reuse and redo? And then lastly, thinking about the recycling and the compost of things, and then thinking about the recovery and like the residual management of it all. Thinking of zero waste and thinking about how we envision zero waste a lot more holistically than what is typically talked about in standard diversion that we see in like your traditional day-to-day higher ed conversations. And this all comes from like how Plan also defines the linear consumption economy. So the linear consumption economy, as we define it, has 5 steps. There's extraction of resources, there's a production of material, there's the production of a good, there's the distribution of that good, there's the consumption of a good, and there's a disposal of a good. Waste is often, at least for us and in the general public, is only viewed on the latter two. So waste is, as we see it, or as it typically is viewed, is what happens in the step between consumption and disposal. And we challenge that because waste doesn't only become waste at consumption to disposal, what like they want you to think, because this is the convenient side of things. Oh, it's like, oh, well, I just need to throw away less, or that puts it on the individual to then, you need to consume less, you need to dispose less. When truly waste is waste all the way over here on step 1 of extraction. If we are not thinking about the end goal of a product, if we are not thinking about how the life cycle of this good is going to be affecting the overall system, waste starts here at extraction, and that moves the like level of where you lead blame, where these where you're trying to how the perspective that you are taking on waste changes drastically when you take that perspective, where it's like, okay, if we don't need to extract this good, how does that affect the general linear consumption? So why is this a problem? Why is this like how we talk about it? Well, that kind of leads into this idea of the waste crisis. So what is the waste crisis? Well, the waste crisis comes from this idea of consumer culture. And on screen, we have an image that says, I shop, therefore I am. So when you think about consumer culture, what we're talking about is this idea that we've been sold, that our personalities and that our individualism is defined by the things that we own. If you want to stand out, you need to buy that item that helps you stand out. And if you want to continue to stand out, you need to continue in this consumption economy of, okay, I need to keep buying this new good to continue to be able to stand out, because that is like, it's a reflection of who I am. And that is intentionally done, and oftentimes a little bit of a flawed way of thinking, because then that kind of leads into this second problem of planned obsolescence. So we have a image on screen that says our whole economy is based on planned obsolescence. We make good products, we induce people to buy them. And then the next year, we deliberately introduce something that'll make those products seem old-fashioned, out of date, obsolete. We do this for the soundest reason, to make money. And this comes from an industrial designer from 1958. And what this starts kind of outlining is what we see in our day-to-day, where products are introduced and are becoming are starting to get produced in a way that makes it more difficult to fix them, makes it more difficult to, they are built in a way that like are designed to break, and they are built in a way or marketed in a way to make you feel bad for having an older version. So that kind of leads us into the two types of planned obsolescence: the functional and systematic. So the functional planned obsolescence, I often talk about phones here. Some of you might be a little young, so you might not remember, but you used to be able to like take your phone apart. Uh, it's, you're thinking you were used to be able to. It was a very common thing where like you would have multiple batteries for your phone, where if your battery died, you could just take the back off of your phone and put in a new battery, put the back on your phone, or things like that. And phones used to. There's the ongoing joke of like the Nokia brick. That was my like first phone. Um, and phones nowadays are designed to be a lot more sleek, designed to be a lot more enclosed, and a lot of it does come down to, or at least they want us to believe that it comes down to like wanting to make it sleeker and slimmer and all of this, but ultimately that kind of leaves the functional side of things where it's like, okay, when everything is glass and the back of your phone breaks and everything is glued together, you're left in a really bad situation where you're pretty much to repair it. And then when things are just so difficult to repair, it's either costs you about the same to buy a new phone or replace it, or like replace the broken glass. And you're like, well, might as well just buy a new phone at that point. And then there's the systematic side of planned obsolescence. And oftentimes, what I talk about with the systematic side of planned obsolescence is fashion, and clothing trends. Uh, Clothes typically does not go bad and typically does not break unless it's ripping, or unless it is, or unless it's, there's something that's awful that goes like horribly wrong. But clothing, as we see it, uh, there are is really cyclical. So there's constantly a new fashion trend. There's constantly a new something that is pushing you to buy new clothes. And there's nothing wrong with your old clothes, but there's just like a cultural taboo with wearing clothes that is out of season or out of style. And like that's, again, all part of marketing and all part of how that side of things is done. And just kind of looking at like, I love the battery life of older phones. I hate buying a new phone. Yeah, but like you have to, because your battery is a great example where you can't just put a new battery in a phone these days. It's not practical. It's not something that's doable. And we see that more and more with now going beyond batteries. Everything has a battery these days. And it's more and more difficult to get a new battery and to replace that. And that's kind of in the idea of like products are being designed to fail, or products are being produced in a way that there will eventually be a reason for you to have to move on. And again, it kind of falls in that idea that, these companies are truly only in it for profit. They're not thinking about the consumers, the well-being of the environment, or the well-being of the consumer, the well-being of any, like, no, if anything, things have gotten more fragile because it's easier to convince you to buy something new if the old one broke. And why is that all important? Why does an organization that talks about zero waste talk about consumer culture and talk about where how things are purchased? Because at the end of the day, we have to think about, where does this stuff come from? And most things come from the petrochemical industry. Most things contain oil or take oil to produce, or some level of things. So this is an image that shows a plastic bear and a yellow duck, and how much oil each of these products holds, whether it be within the plastic it is made out of. So the plastic of the yellow duck for the bathrooms has a weight of 300 grams, and there's 230 milliliters of oil within that. The teddy bear has a weight of 300 grams, the same as the duck, but it has 2.3 liters of oil to produce. So thinking about oil and where that's coming from, and when we think about plastics and how how plastics are affecting our overall environment, it's we are often said, okay, plastic is recyclable, with something that we can deal with within the consumption economy. Plastic shouldn't be that big of a deal. We've fixed it. We've solved that issue. We have recycling, and that's all good and dandy up until you get to the point where you're asking okay, how much of that plastic have we actually taken care of? How much of that plastic has been recycled? And then we get faced with the not so great number of only 9% of all plastic ever made has been recycled. The rest of it is pollution. And it's pollution for not just us, but for the whole world. I talked about the Breakthrough from Plastic movement a little bit earlier in the presentation. Like I mentioned, they are an organization that was started in the Philippines. Why? Because the Philippines has their beaches are covered in plastic from the U.S., from other global North countries, and it's from the US, and they know it's from the US because they can look at the packaging and be like, where was this produced? Where was this made? And you can also take a barcode and see where it was sold. And it's coming from the US, and it's getting there through ocean currents, and it's getting there through different avenues. And microplastics scare me and hurt my heart so much as they affect our sea life and our food. That's huge. Yeah, this is ending up in our food. This is ending up in our it's becoming a bigger issue every day. And let's see, it is scary, but we'll get to a point where we'll talk about hope. And hopefully we can take that and have it not be a fear, and have it be more so a driver for action, because it shouldn't be something that scares you, because we still have the ability to do something about it. But right now, if we continue on the path that we're going, not to add fear, 2050, we've all heard the saying, there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. There are a lot of really great organizations that are working to make sure that this isn't true. Oceana, Life Without Plastic. There's a lot of really great organizations. Ideally, this won't happen, but this is a scary metric that does get thrown out there. And I feel like, yeah, it is a number. Sometimes it's something that we need to say, and it's something that needs to be said so that people can see why it's an important thing to think about, why it's critical that we deal with this now before we get to this point. And what are we doing about it? What are we doing about it? What is happening with all of this waste that we are talking about? In the United States, at least, some of the things that we do is that we have landfills. Landfills are places that we take all of our waste and we send it away. It's the great land of away. It is very intentionally deemed that, because when you throw something away, that is supposed to be where you, as a consumer, stop thinking about it, and it's like no longer your problem. But what happens in a way? Well, it goes to a landfill, and I'm not sure if anyone here has been to a landfill. I work for the Post Landfill Action Network. We go to landfills every now and then. It is there, and they're the amount of thought, effort, and how engineered landfills are, to me, is both incredibly, like, they're incredibly sophisticated, but also incredibly not. Um, and there's a lot of bad things that go to landfills. So, there is landfills where, both release CO2 and methane, which, contributes to greenhouse gases. And they also pollute the general ground with different things that come off, whether, ammonia, dioxins. Whenever you take the things that people don't want anymore, they don't typically leave a lot of great things behind. So as we can start seeing kind of like US methane emissions by source, landfills produce 17% of the methane in the United States, and this is from 2001. Um, Methane, as you all probably know, it's like 4 times more potent than like CO2. Some numbers are higher than that. That's just kind of my general metric. So it's bad. So, okay, cool. Ever heard of incineration? What if we took something that no one wants, trash, and we create something that everybody wants, energy, and then you get to this idea of waste to energy, and that solves all of our problems, right? Not really. Incineration is often we talk about it as a false solution for a lot of reasons. One, and this one is the most ironic and, to me, funny, because I need to laugh. If not, again, it gets very sad, as a lot of people have mentioned in chat. They produce hazardous ash. Again, when you take everybody's waste and you burn it down to its most base components, it's not good. And you're left with ash of just everything that is bad. And the worst part about it is that when the ash is produced, it needs to go somewhere. So where does the ash go? Well, there are entire landfills dedicated to the ash that are created from incinerators. So instead of avoiding the landfill altogether, we've just created a worse landfill, and that's not good. And then we get into the incinerators are really bad they have a lot of violations. They're reducing a lot of dioxins into the earth. And also, it's like, okay, I would believe you and I would give you some credit if it was clean energy, at least. No, it's not. It is some of the worst and dirtiest energy. Um, Different slide. When you look at how much uh, carbon dioxide is produced from incinerators, it produces more CO2 than a coal incinerator, which we have all kind of come into the collective that, like, hey, CO2 from coal, bad. Well, an incinerator that's burning our trash produces more than that, not great. And this metric is from the Global Alliance against, but from Gaia. And I'll share these slides with you all so you all can see where we're getting these numbers. So, and okay, cool. We're talking about all the bad things, but who is this harming? And oftentimes when we talk about this, the people who are most greatly affected by the waste move, the waste crisis in this country, are communities of color and poor communities. And this is very blatantly, as we like to define it, or it's very, very blatantly environmental racism. This is a map of Philadelphia, where I'm at, and you'll see all of the areas that are red and yellow were areas that were deemed not great places to give loans because they were deemed as poor financial risks. And in this bottom corner down here is where Chester is, where is the Covanta incinerator, which is the largest incinerator in North America, here down the street. So, this red area is very much that who is living there? Well, it's, communities of color, it's communities, it's first generation communities, it's low income communities. It's community, those are the people who are most greatly affected. And this is kind of getting into environmental racism and injustice. And environmental racism is a disproportionate impact of environmental hazards for people of color. Environmental justice is a movement in response to environmental racism. Comes from Green Action for Health and Environmental Justice for Frontline. It's a Frontlines community organization that we take a lot. And I think oftentimes what we want when we talk about environmental racism, I think it's important, and justice is important, to give credit where it all started. And a lot of the environmental justice movement oftentimes is credited from starting in Warren County, North Carolina. And it's like from protests from dumping hazardous soil into like the nearby landfill, hazardous soil coming from pesticides, coming from different contaminants, and the long-term impact of that is like have shown there's a really close correlation between like the race and the toxic waste, and it was a issue that was fought really heavily against. So we are relying on systems that are not working, because everything that we've talked about up to this point is if things went well, like these are the systems that we designed in order to like deal with the issues, and they're not going well. So let's talk about a couple of solutions. So in reality right now, we are dealing with a bunch of patchwork solutions that don't really deal with the issues at hand. We have incinerators, we have landfills, we have compost, we have recycling. None of that is addressing the issue at its core, which is we need to produce less waste. We need to have less of it all, so that it is not something that we need to deal with. So like what happens when these systems don't work well? What happens when these systems fail? Like we need to envision a more sustainable and just world. And that gets to, we're done with the doom and gloom. We're going to talk about some positive stuff now. It's we're going to talk about our points of intervention theory. So the points of intervention theory is a plans theory of change, where we talk about that linear consumption economy that we've been talking about this entire time, the extraction, production, consumption, distribution, and disposal of goods. And we talk about ways to get involved in between them. We see this red line that follows the linear consumption economy, but then we see these green folks and green like figures working on resisting extraction, redesigning things as they get produced so that we can, creating renewable energy sources. We see repairing goods so that they don't go directly into the waste system. We see reusing goods. We see, reimagining systems, so that we don't need to live in this broken cycle that we have lived in up to this point. Reclaiming and rethinking and reintroducing things in the whole system. And like the way that what this looks like, and oftentimes what we say is that like no one can do everything, but everybody can do something, and together we can fix this broken system. So together we can create community, and we can create space for each other and support each other, so that we don't need to be afraid, so we don't need to be sad. We can come together as a community to ideally fix this system that we live within. And somewhere like what does like the points of intervention model look like in practice? I'm going to go over some examples of this. So again, the linear consumption economy, the point of intervention of refusing at the point of the point of extraction and production. we see movements like the divesting from fossil fuel movements. So we've seen a lot of campuses. Again, the divestment movement has been a movement led by youth on college campuses, getting them to take their massive endowments, trust funds, everything that the campuses have, and working on moving that money away from the fossil fuel industry. And there's been great success with this. We've seen many campuses uh, have work on this and support many projects across the country. And this is something that's still uh, it's still very much happening. It's still very much having a great success across the country. We're seeing revisioning of packaging. Someone mentioned revisioning packaging and so that it's compostable and recyclable. This is Ecovative. This is a partner of ours, and they make packaging out of mycelium and mushrooms. So everything is kind of like it's a mycelium based foam. So once it's done with the product, once you're done with the packaging, you can compost it. You can throw it back, and you can use it as something to throw back into the ground. Seeing sharing networks and distribution. So like, consumption. This is something that I'm particularly fond of. It's an organization that I work with a lot. It's the West Philadelphia like Tool Library. These are mutual aid networks. They are communities getting together to like build out libraries and making it so that you don't need to buy everything all the time. That you have somewhere you can go to to get away from having to purchase every single tool every single time. And what are the power we've talked about those? That's the community. But what about campuses? We've talked about the whole purpose of this is like a zero waste campus as possible. What are campuses doing? What are some things that you can do on your campus? And we've seen a lot of things, and these are some of the things that plan is supported on, and some things that we see and have seen a lot of success with. So infrastructure change on a college campus, thinking about starting a thrift store, thinking about making it so that there are places for students to be able to both take any kind of waste and avoid it from going into the landfill, um, and also creating spaces where students don't need to necessarily buy new. There's like cheap alternatives for them and for clothing shopping or like whatever you sell in the thrift store. Oftentimes it's clothing, but on college campuses we see a lot of like appliances and furniture and stuff like that, and giving people like a secondhand option, easily accessible for their on campus and in their community. Repair fairs. This is something that Plan does when we visit campuses. We teach students how to sew. We give students sewing kits. We teach students how to put a patch on their clothing, so that when something does tear, when a button does fall off, you have the tools necessary and the knowledge, like the basic knowledge necessary to be able to repair that and make it so it doesn't need to go straight away to the trash. Food recovery has been something that we've supported a lot with, making it so that, there is less food going that necessarily needs to be dealt with in a compost manner, where instead we're redistributing it to individuals who are food insecure, and we can redistribute that. This is a picture of a move out collection, getting things from the trash, preventing things from going to being waste. Policy change on college campuses. So like I mentioned, there's like the Break Free from Plastic campaign that we work with college campuses to sign and getting campuses to commit to eliminating all disposable plastics, all unnecessary disposable plastics. And then these two stories on the right are student-led initiatives that like had great success. The one on the very top, the top right, is a group of students from UCLA that worked on getting micro beads, which were used to be little plastic abrasives that were found in a lot of toiletries, removed from them. So how that movement started is like, hey, let's get these. They got them banned on campus to start with. So they got all microbeads banned on campus because microbeads, it's introducing microplastics to water. It's bad. So they got it banned on campus. Then they worked on getting it banned in the greater city. Then they worked on getting it banned uh, in the county. And then they worked on getting it banned in the state. And now microbeads are no longer allowed in the country, like in the US. And that all started from a student group from UCLA, getting microbeads banned on their campus. And then underneath, we see this is the University of Puerto Rico, and we worked with them a few years ago to get a plastic water bottle ban on campus, and making it so that we're working with the college to provide all the students as they come on with reusable water bottles, so that they have it's part of their policy to give everyone a reusable water bottle. So it's like they have it, and making sure that we're building and investing in clean water sources and refill stations and things like that, so that there is the ability to not have to use a plastic water bottle, that you have all the tools necessary to be able to follow through with reusables. And then there's like innovation. There is Atlas is kind of, a self plug, thinking about innovating on and rethinking how college campuses approach waste and view it. This middle picture is a waste audit. I'm sure if you haven't already done one, the longer you stay in the waste world, you will eventually get in there. But this is this in particular is a brand audit where we work with multiple campuses across the country to take a look at what waste and who is producing the most waste on college campuses. So it is an audit of what companies are producing the most waste, and we kind of collect it together, and there is like a national biggest waste producer award that gets sent out, and it's usually somewhere between Pepsi, Coke, and Nestle, like one of the three. They're the reigning champs. Oh, sweet. Yeah, you can check out Sarah. Sarah just dropped URL's waste audit from 2021. So you all can see just kind of what that kind of information looks like. Um, and yeah, I'm gonna take this time to leave you all with a little bit of uh assignment for you all to do a little bit of self-reflection in this time. Take a few minutes to like think about some of the following questions. List an example of like how your campus currently contributes to the waste crisis. What entities are responsible. Think about what you are currently working on or what to work on your campus, like what could be your point of intervention. And then write down any like general reactions or questions that you all have. And then if you all have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We're going to hang out for a little bit to like ask questions and have a little share back for that. And I'll go back to that slide, but I'm just kind of doing a time check for myself. We're at 5. I'm fine to stay over after, but I do want to respect everyone's time. So I'm going to get through my presentation, and then anything and everything that we have left, we can hang out and discuss. Some additional resources from us. We have a feedback form. I'll send that to you all, and then you all can follow up with everybody. I really appreciate it. It helps me improve these presentations, and it helps all of the plan team work on this. And then also, like I mentioned, we started off with talking about the Students for Zero Waste Conference. It is my job to talk about the Students for Zero Waste Conference as the director of events. So I'm going to talk about the Students for Zero Waste Conference. We have it coming up. It's in November. It's in less than a month. Oh my goodness. That's scary. It's happening on November 10th through the 12th. It'll be held here at Swarthmore College, right outside of Philadelphia, but it's also hybrid. So if you all want to join us digitally, you can join us online. And from what I hear, Bellevue has 10 slots open to send students virtually.
Yes, well, we have about 8 slots. We received funding from the Student Environmental Sustainability Fund. So 8 spots for students to join us virtually at this conference. We'll have a short application process. So we'll be posting that soon. Look out for it in the BC FYI newsletters that go out. And yeah, apply and attend this conference with us. It'll be a great learning opportunity.
So yeah. And then if y'all want to follow us, keep in contact. You can do that at Post Landfill. You can reach us at that's the general Post Landfill email, and I will drop my email if you want to reach out to me directly in the chat for you all. I will stop sharing my screen, and then I'm fine to hang out for you all with you all for a little bit. If you all have any questions, thoughts, things you all want to talk about when it comes in regards to zero waste, let's talk about it. Valencia.
Hi, I kind of had a question. So,
Yeah.
I feel at Bellevue College like our food services department kind of does an okay job, but I see that there's I'm wondering, like, from your experience for college campuses, how did they fix or, encourage campuses against vending machines, because there's not really control over if those items are compostable, and they don't really follow like guidelines like our departments on college will use. But
Mhm.
vending machines are important in a lot of ways for after hours food and drink and maybe medicine or and stuff like that. But I feel like we don't have any influence over how much pollution and one use plastics is being given to us by those companies.
This is a great question, and this is actually something that we are currently working on. So the way that vending machines on college campuses work is typically they are through a contract. So your college campus probably has a pouring rights and a food rights contract with a really large organization, probably Coca-Cola, Pepsi. Alyssa, I don't know which one you got. Which one do you all have?
Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola. So Coca-Cola, because you all have the pouring rights contract with them, one, your dining halls can only have Coca-Cola products or products approved by Coca-Cola, and two, your vending machines are then now also controlled by Coca-Cola. So you'll probably, at least for some college campuses, it's a little bit different. Like my campus, our a University of South Carolina, um, if it's like a big if it's a big school, your campus might have like a one pouring rights contract, and then like we were a big football school, and our football stadium had a different contract with like I think one was Pepsi and one was Coke. It was a very big deal. But your and with that contract, your pouring rights contract, uh, they control what goes in and out of your vending machines. And oftentimes that within that you can some campuses, and this is something that we've seen on campuses, depending on your size, something that we saw at SUNY ESF, this is in New York, what they did was they worked with their pouring rights contract, and they made it so all of their drink vending machines were all aluminum. So no more plastic in their vending machines. And we do have Sarah, you're good. I was going to talk about, thank you, Sarah. We do have some great sessions coming up talking exactly about this topic. And talking about what that looks like, what you can do to like work towards that. And because a lot of these contracts are kept under lock and key, genuinely, we have worked with campuses in Florida to try to get their to get to get access to that contract, and we've had to do Freedom of Information Act like asks with them, and like get lawyers involved because they don't want you to see these contracts. So it's not a great like answer, but a lot of that comes in understanding the contract and negotiation at the front end. And oftentimes, depending on what your school prioritizes, offices of sustainability, people with that are sustainability minded don't get put into those conversations, but it takes a lot of like that's kind of where the student involvement and the general getting the student population to like make sure that they are at the forefront advocating for that, making sure that they're like, hey, we want sustainability to be something that is taken into consideration, taken into consideration for we want sustainability to be taken into consideration when we're doing all these contract negotiations. And if you get a big enough student voice and a big enough student like crowd to back that, the administration needs to listen because at the end of the day, the students are the ones that pay the bills at the college campus. So if that is something that they want to see, they have to. Alyssa, I'm not sure if you have anything that you all want. Do you want to talk about? I'm not sure within that how contracts work for you all.
Yeah, that's just something that with renewing our membership with you all, that is kind of on our radar to start tackling. So if anyone's interested, we definitely need a team of people. And yeah, definitely need student voices, staff voices, faculty voices.
Yeah, and it is possible. We have seen it be done. Like I said, we were on a campus that we were at SUNY ESF, all aluminum in the all aluminum drinks, which is something that we've heard other campuses like have a hard no from, but it's like they have everything. Like there was Gatorade in like a can, and I was like, whoa, I've never seen that. So it's possible, and they have the ability to do it, but oftentimes they won't because it's just not convenient for them. Genuinely, it's just a convenience thing. It's not. It doesn't cost them anymore. It doesn't like. It's not none of that. It is. They just don't want to because it's harder slightly.
Anybody else have a question or a comment they want to share? All right, well, we can end it there. Thank you, Ramiro, for your time. We really appreciate you sharing all your knowledge with us. If anybody wants to get involved or has any follow-up questions, feel free to email sustainability@bellevue.college.edu. And I know Ramiro gave his personal contact information too, so don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thanks everyone for attending. Thanks again, Ramiro.
Thank you all for having me.